The communications array on Velos Prime flickered with dying power as ambassador. Kiranel pressed her webbed hand against the control panel. Through the transparent walls of the orbital station, she could see the burning remains of her homeworld below. Orange flames spread across continents that had once been covered in the crystal cities of her people. The Zilani had built their civilization to last for thousands of years, but it was ending in less than a week. Ambassador, the power core is? Failing, said Technical Officer Zenka from across the chamber. His voice carried the same hollow tone that all her people had developed since the attacks began. We have maybe 10 minutes before complete shutdown. Kiranel nodded slowly. Her species had always been peaceful. The Zilani were scholars and artists, builders of beautiful cities and creators of wonderful music. They had never needed weapons or armies. For 2,000 years, they had lived in harmony across 3 star systems, trading knowledge and art with other peaceful races. War was something they had read about in ancient histories, not something they understood. That peaceful. Life had ended 6 days ago when the Krethok arrived. The first system, Zilani Secondary, had gone silent without warning. The monitoring stations simply stopped sending signals. At first, the government thought it was a technical problem. Perhaps solar flares had damaged the communication networks. Such things happened sometimes in deep space. The second system, Zilani Primary, managed to send one message before it too went dark. The transmission was brief and terrifying. Zenra, the system coordinator, had appeared on screen for just 30 seconds. His normally calm blue skin had turned pale with fear. Behind him, alarms were screaming and lights were flashing red. Came from nowhere, he had said, his voice shaking. Thousands of them, living ships that eat everything. They are not stopping. They're not communicating. They're just consuming. Warn the others. Tell them to run. The transmission had ended there. All attempts to contact Zilani Primary after that met only silence. Now the swarm had reached Velos Prime, the heart of their civilization. From the observation deck of the communications station, Kiranel had watched the Krethok ships approach. They looked like giant insects made of dark metal and flesh. Each one was the size of a small moon, and there were hundreds of them. Moved in perfect formation, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. But there was something hungry and evil about the way they flew. The defense platforms around Velos Prime had tried to fight back. The Zilani had built them centuries ago, more for show than for real protection. Their weapons were designed to destroy asteroids or disable damaged ships, not to fight a real war. The Krethok had swept through the defenses like they were not even there. The outer cities are gone, reported Zenka, reading from his instruments. The swarm has landed on the southern continent. They are moving fast. Kiranel closed her eyes for a moment. In those cities lived millions of her people. Families with children, teachers and students, musicians and painters. All gone now, consumed by the hungry swarm that seemed to eat everything in its path. How long do we have? She asked. Based on their current speed of expansion, maybe 2 days before they reach the capital, Zenka replied. The northern cities will fall first, and the government center. After that, there will be nothing left of our people. 2 days, in 2 days, the Zilani civilization would be completely destroyed. 3-star systems, billions of lives, thousands of years of culture and knowledge, all wiped out by creatures that seem to exist only to consume and destroy. I am sending the message, Kiranel said firmly. She had argued with the High Council about this for hours before they all died in the first attack on the capital. Most of them had thought it was useless. The galaxy was full of advanced species, with powerful military forces, but none of them had ever been able to stop the Krethok. The few races that had tried to fight the swarm had been destroyed just as completely as any other. Most civilizations simply ran when they detected Krethok ships approaching their systems. But Kiranel could not run. This was her homeworld. These were her people. Even if the message brought no help, even if every species in the galaxy ignored their plea, she had to try. She owed that much to the billions who had already died. Her fingers moved across the control panel, activating the long-range communication array. The device was ancient by galactic standards, built when the Zilani first learned to communicate between star systems. It was slow and required enormous amounts of power, but it could reach every inhabited system in this part of the galaxy. Is Ambassador Kiranel of the Zilani Confederation? She began, speaking into the recording device. I am transmitting from Velos Prime in the Zilani home system. Our civilization is under attack by the force known as the Krethok Swarm. 2 of our 3 systems have already fallen. We estimate that our final system will be completely consumed within 48 hours. She paused, looking out at the burning world below, where somewhere down there the last of her people were fighting and dying. They were not soldiers or warriors. They were teachers and artists and builders, trying to defend their families with tools never meant for war. We send this message to any civilized species capable of rendering military assistance. We know that the Krethok are feared throughout the galaxy. We know that many great civilizations have fallen to their advance, but we are desperate. We have nowhere else to turn. If there is anyone who can help us, if there is any force in the galaxy that can stand against the swarm, please respond. We do not ask for much. Even delaying the Krethok for a few days would allow some of our people to escape. Kiranel felt tears running down her cheeks. The Zilani were not a proud species. They had no problem begging for help when their very existence was at stake. We offer everything we have in exchange for assistance. Our technological knowledge, our historical records, our art and music, everything that makes us who we are. We will give it all freely to anyone who helps us survive the next 2 days. This may be the last transmission from the Zilani people. We have lived in peace for 2,000 years. We do not deserve to die like this. She ended the recording and looked at Zenka. Send it everywhere. Every known communication frequency, every diplomatic channel, every emergency network. Someone has to hear it. Someone has to care. Zenka nodded and began the transmission process. The message would take several hours to reach the nearest inhabited systems, and many more hours to spread throughout the galaxy. Even if someone decided to help immediately, they would never arrive in time to save Velos Prime. But maybe, just maybe, they could save some of the Zilani people who were still alive on the remote colonies. As the message transmitted, Kiranel remained at her post, watching her world die. She did not know that her desperate plea was already racing through space at the speed of light, carrying the hopes of a dying species to civilizations she had never heard of. She did not know that most of those civilizations would receive her message and immediately delete it. She was too afraid of the Krethok to risk their own people. But she also did not know that her message would reach a small blue world in an outer spiral arm of the galaxy. A world whose inhabitants had never heard of the Krethok and would not understand why everyone else was so afraid of them. She did not know that on this world, creatures called humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to fight against impossible odds and never give up. The transmission continued, carrying its desperate plea into the darkness of space, seeking help from anyone brave enough or foolish enough to stand against the unstoppable swarm. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking coffee in his ready room aboard the UEF Stormbreaker when the message arrived. The ship was 3 days out from Earth on humanity's first deep space patrol mission, testing the new hyperspace engines that had finally allowed humans to travel between star systems. Jake had been reading reports about engine efficiency when his communications officer knocked on the door. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission on the emergency frequency," said Lieutenant Paula Green. "It is not from Earth Command. The signal. It's coming from outside our solar system." Jake set down his coffee cup and followed Paula to the bridge. In all of human history, this was only the second time they had received a message from an alien species. The first had been a simple greeting from a trading post near Alpha Centauri, welcoming Earth to the galactic community. This message felt different. "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The image that appeared showed a blue-skinned woman, with large eyes and webbed hands. She looked desperate and afraid. Behind her, red lights were flashing, and Jake could hear what sounded like alarms. When she spoke, the universal translator that Earth had received from the trading post converted her words into English. Jake listened to the entire message without speaking. When it ended, the bridge was completely silent. His crew of 30 humans stared at the screen, processing what they had just heard. An entire civilization was about to be wiped out by something called the Krethik Swarm. Billions of innocent people were going to die unless someone helped them. How far away is this Velos system? Jake asked his navigator, Lieutenant Roy Adams. Roy worked at his console for several minutes, checking star charts and calculating distances. About 18 light years from here, sir, with our current hyperspace. Engines, we could reach them in about 6 hours. Sir, said Lieutenant Green, I am monitoring other communication channels. This message has been sent to dozens of star systems, but so far no one has responded to help them. Jake frowned. Why not? If an entire species is about to be destroyed, why is no one helping them? I am searching our database for information. About the Krethik, said Dr. Susan White, the ship's science officer. There are several references in the trading post records. According to these files, the Krethok swarm is considered one of the most dangerous forces in the galaxy. They appear to be a hive mind species that consumes entire worlds. No civilization has ever successfully fought them off. That explains why no one is responding, said Commander Pete Garcia, Jake's second-in-command. If these Krethok are as dangerous as the records say, helping the Zilani would be suicide. Jake walked to the front of the bridge and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of people were dying, while the galaxy's most advanced civilizations did nothing to help them. The thought made him angry. Growing up on Earth, Jake had learned that when someone was in trouble, you helped them. It was basic human decency. Set course for the Velos system, he said. Sir, Commander Garcia looked surprised. We only have one ship. According to these files, the Krethok travel in swarms of thousands. We would not stand a chance. Maybe not, Jake replied. But we cannot just sit here and do nothing while an entire species gets wiped out. Send a message to Earth's command. Tell them what we found and what we are doing. If we do not make it back, at least they will know what happened. The message to Earth took 4 hours to reach Luna Station, where Admiral Lisa Kane was reviewing the monthly supply reports. When the communication arrived, she immediately called an emergency meeting of the military leadership. Within 30 minutes, the top officers of Earth's small space navy were gathered in the war room. Admiral Kane played Captain Morrison's message for the assembled officers. The room erupted in debate before the recording even finished. Madness, said General Carl Brooks of the Space Marines. We have 12 ships total. 12. Against an enemy that has destroyed entire star systems. We do not even know anything about these Krethik, added Captain Helen Torres of the Science Division. For all we know, they have weapons that could destroy our entire fleet before we even got close. But Commander Rick Hayes, a veteran of the brutal Mars colonial wars, disagreed. If we do not help, an entire species dies. Is that the kind of galaxy we want to live in? One where civilizations just watch each other get destroyed? Dr. Amy Carter, the fleet's xenobiologist, had been quietly studying the message during the argument. There is something interesting here, she said. At this Ambassador Kiranel, notice how delicate she appears. Her skin looks thin, almost transparent. Her build is very light. I would guess that the Zilani evolved on a world with low gravity and probably a very gentle environment. What does that matter? Asked General Brooks. It matters because it tells us what kind of species we are dealing with, Dr. Carter replied. Both the victims and the attackers. Think about it. If the Zilani are this fragile, and they have been living peacefully for thousands of years, what does that say about their part of the galaxy? Admiral Kane began to understand. You are saying that the entire galactic community in this region is made up of fragile species that have never had to fight for survival. Exactly. And if the Krethok have been successfully conquering species for generations, it means they are adapted for fighting these gentle civilizations. But what happens when they meet a species that evolved under much harsher conditions? The room went quiet as the implications sank in. Earth was not a gentle world. Humans had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every day. Radiation from space, crushing gravity, violent weather, predators, diseases, natural disasters, All of it had shaped human development for millions of years. What other species considered a death world? Humans called home. Our ships, said Captain Torres slowly.
Yes.
They are built to operate in Earth conditions. The radiation shielding alone would probably protect us from weapons designed to hurt these fragile aliens. And our weapons, added Commander Hayes. Everything we build has to function in Earth's environment. High radiation, crushing gravity, corrosive atmosphere in some places. If these Krithik have only fought delicate species, they have never faced anything like human military technology. Admiral Kane made her decision. We are going to help them. Commander Hayes, you will take 7 ships and jump to the Velo system immediately. Captain Morrison is already on his way there. Support him however you can. Ma'am, said General Brooks, what if we are wrong? What if these Krethik are too powerful even for us? Then we will have tried, Admiral Kane replied. Maybe we will learn something that helps us protect Earth if they ever come here. But we cannot just sit here and do nothing while genocide happens on our watch. Within 2 hours, 7 more human ships were jumping toward the Velo system. The heavy cruiser UEF Liberty, commanded by Captain Morrison, would serve as the flagship. The destroyers, UEF Guardian, UEF Defender, and UEF Warrior, would provide escort. The assault ships, UEF Hammer, UEF Storm, and UEF Thunder, carried companies of space marines trained for boarding operations as the fleet jumped through hyperspace. The crews prepared for battle. None of them knew what they would find when they arrived. None of them had ever fought alien enemies before. But they all understood what was at stake. Somewhere ahead of them, billions of innocent people were dying, and the rest of the galaxy was too afraid to help them. The humans were not. Too afraid. Fear was something you learned to live with when you grew up on a death world. What mattered was not letting fear stop you from doing what was right. In 6 hours, they would find out if growing up on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy had prepared them for this fight. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velo system and immediately saw hell. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UEF Liberty, staring at his tactical display in shock. The Krethik swarm was enormous, easily 1,000 bioships of various sizes arranged in perfect formation around the dying world of Velo's Prime. My God, whispered Lieutenant Paula Green from her communications station. How many of them are there? Tactical is showing 1,047 contacts, reported Lieutenant Commander Ben Rodriguez from the weapons station. Ranging in size from small fighters about 50 meters long to massive capital ships over 2 kilometers. Jake watched the display as the Krethok ships moved in perfect coordination around the planet. They looked exactly like the database had described them. Giant insects made of dark metal and living tissue. Some had wings that seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. Others had long tentacles that reached out to grab debris from the planet's surface. All of them radiated a sense of hungry malevolence that made Jake's skin crawl. Sir, I am detecting Zilani life signs on the planet, said Dr. Susan White from her science station. It's very weak, scattered across the northern continent, but there are still millions of them alive down there, in the orbital stations. 3 are still operational, including the communications array. The rest have been destroyed or abandoned. Another few hours and there would be nothing left to save. Communications hail the largest Krethik ship. Let them know we are here. We still do not know what their capabilities are. We are about to find out, Jake replied. Lieutenant Green worked at her station for several minutes before shaking her head. No response, sir. I am not even sure they have individual communication systems. The swarm seems to operate as a single entity. Then we talked to the Zilani. Hail the communications station. The response was immediate. Ambassador Kiranel appeared. On the main screen, looking exhausted and frightened, but still alive. When she saw the human crew on her display, her large eyes widened in surprise. You came, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Someone actually came to help us. Yes, ma'am, Jake said formally. I am Captain Morrison of the United Earth Federation ship Liberty. We received your distress call and responded immediately. We are here to help. Kiranel looked past Jake to the tactical display showing the tiny human fleet next to the massive Krethik swarm. Captain Morrison, While I am grateful beyond words for your bravery, you must understand what you are facing. The Krethik have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours appears to be. Ma'am, with respect, we did not come all this way just to watch, Jake replied. We are here to end this fight. Please pull all your remaining people back to minimum safe distance. We are about to engage the enemy. The Zilani ambassador stared at him in disbelief. Captain, these creatures have consumed 2 of our star systems. They have never been defeated in recorded galactic history. How do you expect to succeed where others have failed? Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. These were people who had grown up on Earth, a world that had tried to kill their ancestors every single day for millions of years. They had trained in the radiation belts around Jupiter, in the crushing depths of Earth's deepest oceans. They were products of a world so hostile that most galactic species would die just from breathing its atmosphere. Ma'am, we come from what you might call a difficult neighborhood, Jake said with a slight smile. We are used to fighting things that are bigger and scarier than us. Now please get your people to safety. We have work to do. On the other side of the system, the Krethik swarm had detected the new arrivals. The hive mind consciousness that controlled all the bioships turned its attention to these strange newcomers. Through sensors spread across 1,000 ships, it examined the human fleet with growing contempt. The ships were tiny, barely larger than Krethok fighters. Their design was crude and primitive, with rough metal hulls and simple weapon systems. Their energy signatures suggested they were barely functional, held together by primitive technology that any advanced civilization would have, abandoned centuries ago. The hive mind dismissed the humans immediately. 8 primitive ships against over 1,000 biovessels. It would be over in minutes. A few dozen fighters would be enough to deal with these foolish newcomers. Lieutenant Denis. Commander Rodriguez watched his tactical screen as 60 Krethik fighters broke formation and headed toward the human fleet. Each one was about the size of a small Earth destroyer, their bioholes rippling with what looked like muscle tissue under dark armor plating. Incoming hostiles, he reported calmly. 60 fighters, approaching in formation, time to weapons. Range, for minutes. All ships, battle stations, Jake ordered. This is what we came for. Throughout the human fleet, crews moved to their combat positions with practiced efficiency. These were people who had trained for space combat in some of the most dangerous environments in Earth's solar system. The radiation around Jupiter that would cook most alien life forms was just another day at the office for them. The crushing gravity wells near massive planets were training grounds where they had learned to fight. Sir, the Krethak fighters are accelerating, Rodriguez reported. They're not even bothering with evasive maneuvers. They're coming straight at us. Jake nodded. The enemy had no reason to expect resistance from such primitive-looking ships. They were about to get a very unpleasant surprise. All ships prepare for engagement. Target the lead fighters. Fire on my command. The Krethok fighters closed to weapons range and immediately opened fire with bioelectric weapons designed to overload the nervous systems of their enemies. Bolts of electric energy struck the human ship's hulls and dispersed harmlessly across radiation shielding designed to protect against the cosmic rays of deep space. No damage to any ship, Rodriguez reported with satisfaction. Their weapons appear to be designed for biological targets or very light shielding. Our turn, Jake said grimly. All ships, fire. The human fleet opened fire with kinetic weapons, designed to function in the harsh environment of Earth's solar system. Magnetic accelerator cannons launched projectiles at significant fractions of light speed, each one carrying enough kinetic energy to punch through the hull of an Earth battleship. The effect on the Krethik biofighters was devastating. The first salvo tore through their formation like bullets through wet paper. Bioarmor that had protected them against the energy weapons of Gentle civilizations could not stop projectiles moving at 50,000 kilometers per second. 15 Krethak fighters simply disintegrated under the impact. 10 more were crippled, spinning helplessly through space as their biosystems failed. The remaining fighters scattered in panic, their perfect formation broken by an attack they could not understand. Direct hits across the board, Rodriguez reported with grim satisfaction. 25 confirmed kills, 10 more heavily damaged. On the communications array, Ambassador Kiranel watched the battle with her mouth open in shock. In 30 seconds, the humans had destroyed more Krethok ships than the Zilani military had managed in 6 days of fighting. "How?" she whispered to herself. The answer was simple, though she did not understand it yet. The Krethok had spent centuries conquering species that evolved on gentle worlds under kind stars. They had never faced opponents who grew up on a planet where the background radiation was deadly, where the weather could kill you, and the native life forms had spent millions of years learning to be perfect. Predators. The swarm was about to learn what happened when unstoppable force met immovable object. The destruction of the fighter squadron sent shockwaves through the Krethok hive mind. For the first time in centuries, something had hurt them. Something had actually destroyed their bioships in direct combat. The collective consciousness that controlled the swarm turned its full attention to these strange newcomers. Through 1,000 sensor clusters, the hive mind studied the human fleet more carefully. The ships still looked primitive and crude, but the weapons they had just fired were clearly more dangerous than first analysis had indicated. The swarm began to reorganize itself, pulling ships away from the planet to deal with this unexpected threat. Captain Jake Morrison watched his tactical display as the Krethok formation shifted. Hundreds of bioships were turning toward the human fleet, abandoning their positions around Velos Prime to face the new enemy. "Sir, we have their attention," reported Lieutenant Commander Ben Rodriguez. "I count 400 ships moving to intercept us. The rest are maintaining position around the planet." "Good," Jake replied. "Every ship they send at us is one less ship attacking civilians. All vessels prepare for full engagement." The approaching Krethok force was unlike anything in human military experience. The bioships moved in perfect coordination, flowing through space like a single living organism. Some resembled giant spiders with metal legs that gleamed in the starlight. Others looked like massive flying rays with wings that seemed to ripple with their own life. The largest ships were nearly as big as Earth's moon, covered in what appeared to be chitinous armor plates that shifted and moved as the creatures flew. "Those are not ships," said Dr. Susan White, studying the readings from her science station. "They're actually alive. Each one is a single organism that has been grown and modified for space combat." "Can we still hurt them?" Jake asked. "Their outer shells appear to be some kind of biometallic armor, but our kinetic weapons should still be effective. The real question is what kind of weapons they have." The question was answered moments later as the Krethok force entered firing range. The bioships opened up with a variety of attacks that would have terrified any normal galactic civilization. Bioelectric bolts designed to fry electronic systems, acid sprays that could dissolve most known metals, sonic weapons that could shatter the bones of any creature that heard them, radiation bursts that would kill most organic life instantly. All of it struck the human ships and did absolutely nothing. "No damage to any vessel," Rodriguez reported calmly. "Their electrical attacks cannot penetrate our radiation shielding. The acid is not strong enough to affect our hull materials. Sonic weapons are blocked by our hull design. And the radiation is actually less intense than what our ships handle during normal operations near Jupiter." Jake nodded grimly. The Krethok weapons were designed to fight species that evolved under gentle conditions. Humans had evolved on a world where cosmic radiation was a daily hazard, where the very air could be toxic in some places, where the native bacteria could kill you if you were not careful. Earth's military technology was built to function in conditions that would destroy most galactic civilizations. Return fire? All ships, full spread. The human fleet unleashed everything they had. Magnetic accelerator cannons fired projectiles at incredible speeds. Particle beam weapons designed to cut through asteroids in the Jupiter mining operations sliced through bioarmor like knives through butter. Plasma torpedoes that could melt the hull of an Earth battleship punched through. The Krethok ships had exploded inside their living tissue. The results were catastrophic for the swarm. Bioships that had conquered hundreds of worlds were torn apart by weapons they could not defend against. The perfect coordination of the hive mind began to break down as individual ships started trying to escape the slaughter. 70 confirmed. Kills, Rodriguez reported with satisfaction. The remaining ships are scattering. Their formation is completely broken. But Jake knew the real fight was just beginning. Commander Hayes, take your Marine assault ships and hit their flagship. That thing is too big for our ship weapons to handle effectively. Commander Rick Hayes smiled grimly from the bridge of the UEF Hammer. Copy that, Captain. Marines, prepare for boarding action. The Krethok flagship was a nightmare made real. Nearly 3 kilometers long and covered in what looked like living armor that pulsed with a sickly green light. It resembled a giant centipede with dozens of weapon pods along its length. As the human assault ships approached, these pods opened to reveal rows of teeth-like projections that began firing bioelectric bolts. Incoming fire, reported Sergeant Major Carol Davis from the Hammer's tactical station. Multiple bioelectric strikes, but no damage to our hull. Take us in close, Hayes ordered. Marines, remember your training. These things have never fought anyone who grew up on a death world. Show them what that means. The assault ships. UEF. Hammer, UEF Storm, and UEF Thunder closed with the flagship, their armored hulls shrugging off everything the bioship could throw at them. Magnetic grapples locked onto the alien vessel's hull. Cutting torches began burning through the biometallic armor. Inside the flagship, the Krethok hive mind was experiencing something it had never felt before. Fear. These strange newcomers were not responding to any of their weapons. Worse, they were actually boarding the flagship, cutting through armor that had protected the swarm for generations. The first humans to enter the bioship were Space Marines trained for combat in the most hostile environments Earth could provide. They wore powered armor designed to function in the radioactive hell of Europa's ice mines and the crushing depths of Earth's oceanic trenches. Their weapons were built to kill the genetically modified predators that had escaped from terraforming. Projects on Mars, Sergeant Tony Miller led the first squad through the breach in the flagship's hull. The interior of the bioship was like something from a nightmare. The walls pulsed with life, covered in veins that carried some kind of glowing fluid. The air was thick with spores that would have killed most galactic species. Instantly, but merely triggered the air filters in the Marines' helmets. Contacts ahead, reported Corporal Lisa Brown, her thermal sensors picking up movement in the organic corridors. Multiple hostiles approaching from 3 directions. The Krethok defenders that rushed to meet the human boarders were creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Some looked like giant insects with razor-sharp claws and acidic saliva. Others resembled walking nightmares with too many eyes and mouths full of teeth designed to tear through the fragile flesh of their usual enemies. They ran straight into Marines who had trained to fight the predators of Earth, creatures that had spent millions of years evolving to be perfect killing machines. The Krethok found themselves facing humans in powered armor who moved faster than anything their size should be able to move, who hit harder than creatures twice their mass, and who showed absolutely no fear of monsters that had made entire civilizations surrender in terror. The battle inside the flagship was brief and one-sided. Krethok claws that could tear through the strongest materials, known to most galactic species, could not penetrate armor. Designed to protect against the industrial accidents on Titan, acid that could dissolve. Starship hulls was neutralized by chemical protection systems built to handle the toxic atmosphere of Venus research stations. Flagship neutralized, Hayes reported as his Marines secured the bioship's central chamber. The hive mind appears to be centered in this location. We are setting charges now. Outside the flagship, the rest of the Krethok swarm was falling apart. Ships that had moved in perfect coordination for centuries were now fleeing in random directions. As the destruction of their flagship disrupted their collective consciousness, human ships pursued the scattered biovessels, picking them off one by one with weapons the aliens could not understand or defend against. Ambassador Kiranel watched the battle from her orbital station in complete amazement. In less than 4 hours, 8 primitive human ships had accomplished what the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy considered impossible. They had not just defeated the Krethok swarm, they had utterly destroyed it. How? She whispered again. The same question she had been asking since the battle began. How are they so strong? 6 hours after the battle ended, Ambassador Kiranel stood in the shuttle bay of the UEF Liberty, waiting to meet the creatures who had saved her people. Around her, the remains of the Krethic swarm drifted through space as frozen debris. Out. A single bioship had escaped. A force that had terrorized the galaxy for generations was completely gone. She had requested permission to come aboard the human flagship immediately after the fighting stopped. Captain Morrison had agreed, though. She could hear the surprise in his voice when she made the request. Most galactic species preferred to conduct first meetings through video communications, maintaining safe distances until they understood each other better. But Kiranel needed to see these humans in person. She needed to understand how they had accomplished the impossible. The shuttle bay doors opened, and she stepped inside, accompanied by 2 of her aides. The first thing she noticed was the gravity. It was much stronger than what her people were used to, almost twice what they maintained on their ships and stations. Walking required real effort, and she could feel the weight pressing down on her delicate bone structure. The second thing she noticed was the air. Her breathing mask filtered it automatically, but the atmospheric readings on her scanner showed levels of nitrogen and oxygen that would be toxic to most galactic species. There were also trace amounts of gases that her people used only in industrial applications, yet the humans seemed to breathe this mixture naturally. Captain Morrison approached her with several of his senior officers. Up close, he looked even more intimidating than he had on the video screen. He was tall and heavily built, with thick bones and dense muscle that spoke of evolution under high gravity. His skin looked tough and weathered, adapted for harsh conditions. His eyes were sharp and alert, constantly scanning his surroundings like a predator watching for threats. "Ambassador Kiranel," he said formally, extending his hand in what she recognized as a human greeting gesture. "Welcome aboard the Liberty. I hope our gravity and atmosphere are not too uncomfortable for you." She carefully took his hand, surprised by how strong his grip was even when he was obviously being gentle. "Thank you, Captain Morrison. Your ship is quite remarkable. I have never seen technology quite like this." Morrison smiled, an expression that showed teeth designed for tearing meat. "We build things a little differently where we come from. Would you like a tour? I think you might find it educational." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Kiranel began to understand why the humans had been so effective against the Krethic. Everything on the ship was built to withstand conditions that would kill her people. The walls were thick metal designed to block radiation that would cook most organic life. The lighting was harsh and bright, adapted for eyes that had evolved under a powerful star. Even the simple act of walking required strength that most galactic species did not possess. "Captain," she said, as they entered the ship's medical bay, "may I ask what kind of world you come from?" Morrison looked at Dr. Susan White, who had joined the tour. "Doctor, would you like to explain?" Dr. White nodded and activated a holographic display showing Earth's solar system. "This is our home system, Ambassador. Our planet is the third one from our star, which we call Sol." Kiranel studied the display with growing amazement. "Your star is much larger and more active than ours. The radiation output must be enormous." "About 10 times what your people are used to," Dr. White confirmed. "Our planet also has much stronger gravity than most inhabited worlds. About twice what you experience on Velos Prime. The atmosphere contains gases that are toxic to most species, and the weather patterns can be quite violent. But how do you survive in such conditions?" "We evolved there," Morrison said simply. "Our ancestors spent millions of years adapting to those conditions. What other species consider a death world we call home." They continued the tours, visiting the ship's weapon systems and engineering sections. Everything Kiranel saw reinforced the same message. These humans had not just survived on their harsh world, they had thrived. They had built a civilization and technology based on overcoming challenges that would destroy most galactic species. "The weapons you used against the Krethic," she said, as they stood in the ship's armory, "they are far more powerful than anything in our databases." "They have to be," explained Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, who had joined them. "Everything we build has to function in Earth conditions. Our kinetic weapons are designed to punch through asteroids in high radiation environments. Our energy weapons have to work in the magnetic fields around gas giants. Our armor has to protect against cosmic radiation that would kill most life forms and your soldiers. Space Marines train in some of the most dangerous places in our solar system, Morrison said with obvious pride. The radiation belts around our largest planet. The ice mines on moons where the cold would freeze most species solid. Underwater facilities where the pressure would crush conventional spacecraft. By the time they finish training, there is not much in the galaxy that can scare them. Kirinel thought about the Krathok warriors that the humans had faced during the boarding action. Creatures that had terrified entire civilizations had been defeated by soldiers who considered them just another challenge to overcome. They finished the tour in Morrison's ready room, where the captain offered her something he called coffee. The drink was bitter and contained stimulants that would probably kill most galactic species. But she managed a few small sips to be polite. "Captain Morrison," she said carefully, "I need to ask you something important. What do you want in return? For saving us?" Morrison looked genuinely confused. "Want in return? Ambassador, we did not come here to make a deal. We came because you needed help. But surely you must want something. Technology, resources, territory." "The only thing we want is to know that your people are safe," Morrison replied. "We heard your message asking for help and we helped. Is what civilized beings do for each other." Kirinel stared at him in amazement. In her experience, nothing in galactic politics was ever that simple. Species always wanted something in exchange for assistance. But these humans, these terrifying creatures from a death world, had risked their lives for people they had never met, simply because it was the right thing to do. "There is something you should know," she said slowly. "Word of what happened here will spread throughout the galaxy very quickly. Every civilization will want to know about the species that defeated the Krathok. Is that a problem? It could be. Some species might see you as a threat. Others will want to make alliances with you. Your people are about to become very important in galactic politics, whether you want to or not." Morrison nodded thoughtfully. "We will deal with that when it happens. For now, we just want to make sure your people can rebuild their civilization in peace." As Kirinel prepared to return to her shuttle, she realized that the galaxy had fundamentally changed in the past few hours. For centuries, the Krathok had been an unstoppable force that made every species live in fear. Now they were gone, destroyed, by creatures that most galactic databases had listed as primitive pre-space flight barbarians. But she had seen the truth. The humans were not primitive. They were the products of a world so harsh that it had forged them into something unprecedented in galactic history. They were warriors who fought not for conquest or profit, but simply because it was right to help those who could not help themselves. "Captain Morrison," she said as she reached the shuttle bay doors, "there is something my people say when we want to honor someone who has done something truly remarkable. We say that they have touched the stars and made them brighter. We end. Your people have done that today." Morrison smiled that predator's smile again, but this time it seemed warm and genuine. "Thank you, Ambassador. Take care of your people. If anyone else tries to hurt them, send us a message. We will come." Her shuttle returned to the communications station. Kirinel began composing a new message to be broadcast throughout the galaxy. This one would not be a plea for help, but a warning and an announcement. The galaxy had new players, and they were unlike anything that had come before. The message was simple. To all civilizations, we have made contact with a species from the third planet of System Sol. Approach with respect and friendship. They are Deathworlders, who have chosen to protect the innocent. The age of the Krathok is over. The age of humanity has begun.